Welcome back to zekiewon Plays. I'm so glad you guys have joined me again. Today we're going to be reviewing a really neat game called Blasphemous. If you've never seen one of these before, I'm going to rate the game in about 10 different categories to come up with a score of how I think the game plays and how well I think you will enjoy it if you pick up this game. Little disclaimer before we get started. Blasphemous is a pretty mature type of game, so in the gameplay today you may see some things that are a little disturbing, so if you have a light stomach, you might want to check out on this one. Alright, first category is combat. How good does the combat feel in this game of Blasphemous? It's smooth, it's fun, it gives a lot of feedback, and there are tons of different little combos that you can do, different strategies. If you find yourself back against the wall, up against a boss that you can't get a handle on, there is usually something else you can try to do. Combat is exquisite in this game. It's one of my favorite parts of the entire package. Let's talk about the world design a little bit, specifically movement and traversal. The world of this, Metroidvania-esque game is really fun to explore. Lots of different environments, lots of fun environments. However, a couple of knocks on the traversal, on the movement are A, the hundreds of areas that you can instantly die, be it from a spiked pit or a fall. Never is that fun, especially when checkpoints can be few and far between. And second knock on it is that the speed never really gives you any kind of speed upgrades through the entire game, and so it always feels maybe a little slow, especially on backtracking or trying to return to a boss. Next, let's talk about atmosphere. Atmosphere is where gameplay intersects with the aesthetic or the world design, and in Blasphemous, those two things match up rather nicely. You have this kind of spiritual, sacrilegious, grungy, bloody sort of aesthetic going on. Mix that with the way that combat brings in, magic and dashing in and out, as well as like the really every swing of the sword feels like a weighty connection with whatever enemy you're fighting. And these things come together really well. They immerse you in this environment where you feel like you're really part of the world that you're playing in. Next, let's talk about art design. Does the art design in Blasphemous achieve what the artist set out to accomplish? I believe it does. The art design is a little bit retro style. However, it's got more, blood and creative animation in all of the different enemies and all of the attack animations than any retro game would have ever been capable of. Thus bringing a very modern storytelling part of this to life. And so the art direction of this game is beautiful and it is immersive. However, sometimes the retro sort of aesthetic is a little overplayed, so I counted off a couple of points. How well do the graphics perform, especially adjusting for like the age of the game? Well, this is a fairly recent game, and the graphics perform fine. There were only a few bugs or glitches that I felt like that I encountered during my playthrough. I did give it a slightly lower score, however, because it is a little disappointing given that they went with a retro side-scrolling, 2D graphical setup. It still had a few bugs and glitches, which is not the most fun thing to experience when wanting to play a very polished Metroid-style side-scroller. Let's talk about narrative. Is there a cohesive or compelling story here? Yes, mostly yes. A little bit of strangeness in it, and it's like I'm not sure how to interpret a few of the elements of the story. However, you are playing as this broken down, kind of left behind bearer of the sins of the world, trying to set some things right that have fallen in this dystopian religious environment that is Blasphemous. And so you do feel connected to your mission. You do feel intrigued and like you want to know more about the mystery going on here. You are left at the end with quite a bit of questions still unanswered. And so the game is great, the story is good, but the story is not perfect. Next up, creativity. Does this game try anything new or exciting? It does and it doesn't. In some ways, the atmosphere, the art design and the gameplay coming together, that feels fresh. I've never played a game that has this same flavor, if that makes sense. There's a lot of ways where it's buying and picking and choosing from other games that didn't feel like it had its own identity, rather it was a hodgepodge of a bunch of others. Nothing wrong with that, because so many of these other elements that it's choosing from are amazing in their own right. But did it do anything brand new? Not so much. Let's talk about replayability. How much fun is this game on subsequent playthroughs? Blasphemous does okay there. I could see the New Game Plus mode specifically being a blast to play through. However, on playthroughs beyond that, there is only so much that you can customize here. So you can't really experience the game with different weapons or different styles of combat, besides maybe skewing your character a little more towards magic or a little more towards physical combat. But even then, on the first playthrough, you can experience pretty much all that there is to offer. And so replayability gets kind of a middling score. The length of the game, or I like to say tireability, how tired are you at the end of this experience? Could you play 10 more hours, or do you feel like, oh, I'm glad it's finally coming to an end? And Blasphemous kind of falls a little short here as well. I found myself glad that I was to the final boss, because I was tired of the slow movement around the map and having to go back and explore and just trudging through different things. And I was also tired of the instant deaths from falling in pits or falling into spikes that seems to happen randomly sometimes, right? And so a little bit at the end of the game, there was like, okay, it's running a little long without any kind of switch up going on here. The final category is satisfaction. How much feedback, how much enjoyment do you get out of the experience? This game is incredibly enjoyable. If any of you have played a Dark Souls or a Bloodborne-like game, you know what it feels like to beat a challenging boss. Even Hollow Knight gives you this, right? A boss that you bashed your head against the wall trying to beat and finally overcoming it. Blasphemous has that to some degree. And so just that in itself, the boss battles, gives it a great level of satisfaction. However, it doesn't top the charts in this category either. In conclusion, Blasphemous is a brilliant game. The art direction, the combat, all of it comes together in a package that does feel fresh because of the flavor that has not really been explored in any game that I have been exposed to before. However, due to the lack of anything truly unique or creative in this game, and due to the fact that it doesn't necessarily hold up over many playthroughs or make me want to just come back over and over again, this Soulsborne Metroidvania type game comes in at a 7 out of 10. Good game, worth a playthrough, especially if you're a fan of Souls games or a fan of the Metroidvania type of games. But it is not the best game on the market, nor is it one that I would put anywhere close to my top 10. Thank you so much for checking out this review. We will have more coming up very soon. New games, old games, games that I've recently returned to. Look forward to seeing more content like this on my channel soon.